Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our third installment of STO Tech Trek. Um, Myself, Asher Zombie, and my co-host over here, Aponte. Say hello.
How we doing, boys and girls?
Well, anyways, we're just kind of gonna roll right into what we were gonna talk about here. We have a few things that are going on wacky with traits at the moment. We have standoff. What's going on with standoff?
So we were noticing we went into a PvP and we were actually doing some torpedo testing with Oden, and we were noticing that when he was firing torpedo spread, he wasn't getting the same number of hits that any of us were, or that he should have been getting with torpedo spread 3. We obviously went into the parse to see that it wasn't just a visual effect, and it wasn't. He was only getting one hit.
Mm-hmm.
So from there, we decided to test what was going on. We troubleshooted through his build, took everything off, put it back one by one, and found that it was actually standoff that was affecting this. We're not sure why. Standoff is a trait that's going to give you bonus damage when facing a foe's front arc,
Yeah, 90
and
degrees.
that damage is decreased versus players. So now this thing is 100% broken in PvP. We fired many times. We have started somewhat testing it in PvE, but in PvE, it's actually been pretty inconsistent. We've seen some spreads that were only firing one shots, and some spreads that were actually acting normally.
So this is
So
only
if you are running standoff with this build, yeah, just be aware of what's going on.
yeah. So this is only affecting torp spread at the moment that we're aware of.
Yeah, we fired some high yields and stuff, and they seem to act normally.
Okay.
So as of right now, we know it's only affecting torpedo spread.
Yeah, and it's not that really big of a deal, to be honest. I don't think so, but
No, this is not a major thing,
yeah.
and just something be aware of. I know it's a decent trait that doesn't cost that much that people kind of throw on some builds, so just
Hmm.
be aware of it.
Yeah. Oh, and now the next thing, like we when we go into ISA, we noticed that people were using scattervolley a lot and getting like insanely high numbers. I
Rapid.
rapid. I'm sorry,
No,
rapid.
no.
Yeah. Anyways, but from what I understand, you did some research and you found out there's some traits that are ghosting.
Yeah, so we decided to look into what exactly because usually it was always scatter volley over rapid fire in PVE.
Hmm.
So started to look into some builds, look into some traits that would work with rapid fire to see what these builds were about. And while we were just testing them for our own fun, we were using Go for the Kill, which is from the Strike ship or the Recon ship, the Jem'Hadar T6. Go for the Kill extends the duration of cannon rapid fire by 3 seconds when you critically hit. Now, one of us had both copies, the Recon ship and the Strike ship, on that character, and he noticed that it would extend the duration the one time like it was supposed to, and then again it would extend it. So since he had two of the ship that is a different variant, but both have the same starship trait, it was actually registering twice. So essentially he was getting 6 seconds if the critical hits happened, and then it was extending his rapid fire. Now this took us to decide to test the other two ships that this could affect, which would be the Alachi Shashar, because it has a command and intel variant, and the Guardian Cruiser, which has a mirror variant.
Hmm.
And we saw with Torpedo Barrage, it was actually working the same way, where your Torpedo Barrage grants you a high yield, one, after using any high yield ability, one, two, or three. And we saw we would fire off our Bridge Officer high yield, you would get your Torpedo Barrage high yield, and then again, you would get another one. So,
Yeah, but the Cheshire one is one that's been known for quite a while, correct?
yeah, I mean, I for a while people thought these were actually fixed. The other one is Desperate Repairs off the Guardian.
Hmm.
This one
Yes.
we haven't tested as much, but we do know that at one point it was ghosting. So I say
Well,
it's
no,
fair to assume that it is still if the other two are.
it absolutely is because I used that in PvP about 6 to 8 months ago, and then I did it recently again, messing with tank builds and stuff like that. But it is definitely ghosting.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, and those are actually three pretty nice traits: one for cannons, one for torps, and another one for tanking. So
Hmm.
I mean, both the Guardian ships, one Zen and the Mirror one was a giveaway. So that's not one that I think people can necessarily get their hands on.
Mm-hmm.
And the Strike Recon and the Bolshashars, they're very expensive ships. But, I'm sure there are a decent number of people that might have both copies, collectors, people like that. So
Yeah, because at least for the Guardian stuff like that, the only way you were able to get that was through a charity event. All right. So, anyways, we discovered something really cool with OSS overriding subsystem safeties. Um, Basically, it was supposed to be after season 13. They nerfed it to where it was a 5-second lockout. Regardless, nothing could bring it back at all. Now that we're finding out that we've been messing with it again, it's what we get, like maybe 2 seconds.
yeah, I believe between what me and you have seen, it's
Mm-hmm.
mostly 2 seconds. Somebody said I think they might have seen 3,
Yeah.
but I think it's more like 2. This one we have to give credit to our friend Austin,
Mm-hmm.
who was messing around using it still on a build and said that he saw it coming back way faster than 5 seconds. So we looked into it.
Yeah, and well, that's the thing. We thought maybe it was the ICO shields and a few other things. We took all those off, and it was still sticking around 2 seconds as opposed to the original 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Now we're gonna move on to the Omni Tachyon console. That one's an interesting one. I'll let you talk about that one because that affected a very good friend of yours recently.
Yeah, so off one of the Vestas comes the omnidirectional tachyon wave siphon. This was a console that, it's a drain console pretty much that depletes shields. It was a console that when it first came out was really broken. It was actually being buffed by the Lucari console, the ship that came off the Lucari Dorito ship. So we were seeing incredible numbers, about 400k off just this one console in ISA. So they fixed how it interacted with the Lucari one, but the console itself was still doing an enormous amount of drain.
Mm-hmm.
So there were some records posted with that console doing its good numbers. So on the boards, they actually banned this console, which, makes sense at the time. It wasn't working correctly. But Cryptic, I believe, we've tested a few different times, has fixed this console. I don't want to speak on their behalf, but more so to where they wanted it to work and do the damage they wanted out of it. But the parse is still not accepting this console.
Yeah, I don't know if it's just that they haven't had the time to get around to fixing it and putting it back into the parsing table again. I don't know.
Yeah, which is completely understandable.
Mm-hmm.
This was just more something wanted to let people know in case that is on their build, and they put out a record or something, or they were going for something. Just to be aware that to be careful, because right now the damage that this does will not count toward your DPS. It won't even show up on the parse. So.
All right. So, anyways, we also made an interesting discovery when going into HSEs recently with lag. You want to go into that one, Aponte?
Sure. So I mean, for the longest time, I remember during HSEs, during the first opening spike, with all that damage going out and everybody's alpha strikes, if you will, they're just opening volleys. I always got a decent little spike of lag there.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we were doing HSEs recently, it seemed like it was more consistent throughout the whole run, where it was like almost a slideshow. And I don't get lag pretty much anywhere else. So I figured it wasn't necessarily maybe all just due to the game or anything like that. So we decided to shut off our parses. And the minute that happened, HSE became very fluent and easy to play again. So we've just been having one person parse for us.
Well, I mean, I've seen that myself. It's just the moment that we took that off. We started doing that in ISA runs too, and I've noticed a little bit more fluidity while doing it instead of like 3-4 people parsing.
Yeah.
So we're not 100% sure if that's the case. That's what we did. We took it off and things kind of fixed itself. So.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think you consider yourself, I'm not very tech savvy or anything like that, but it seems to make sense. I mean, that's a lot of data that it has to take in, especially with all the different kind of damage types and sources that are out there right now. So it kind of makes sense that with all that going on, that could be the cause of it slowing down. So
anyways, so we're not all doom and gloom all the time. We're going to talk about some positive things. The really cool positive thing is the Endeavor system. If you notice, like, every day, I believe, like a little thing will pop up on the right side of your screen telling you to go gank like 7 Borg or go craft something random, etc., etc. But the really cool thing about this is, like, once you do it, and it's pretty simple to do most of them, you can get anywhere from, like, what is it, like half a mil EC or R&D stuff, and what else comes out of that? Do you recall?
You can get like a quarter of a spec point, so
Mm-hmm.
quarter of the experience needed to get to another specialization point.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some good things out of it.
Absolutely wonderful, though. I mean, we've been kind of asking for stuff like that for years, you know, to get people to play these other STS. Because, I mean, if you're pugging it and you only got like 2 or 3 of us on at a time, we want to go do something like, not necessarily, like, what's the one that you like so much?
The breach.
Yes, the breach. Sitting in that one trying to wait for somebody, you could be in there for 20, 30 minutes and it
Yeah,
may never pop. Now, with something like that, I've seen that they've had you go into the breach or other STFs or crafting, et cetera, et cetera. And yeah, it's a good payout. I mean, it's a really good payout.
yeah. I mean, so like you said, I mean, we are, everyone knows we like to do our DPS, play ISA,
Hmm.
HSE, but I mean, I like a lot of the maps in this game,
Oh, yeah.
and a lot of them are hard to get teams for because it's either some map that someone doesn't need the marks for, someone doesn't know about, the payout's not necessarily good enough. But this gives a reason for people to do some of those other STFs. And it's just another way to grind in a game where some people have trouble with EC and different things like that. It's a really nice give back.
Oh, yeah. It would just like I would like to see an event in the future for them to bring back some kind of a nice random loot drop that's really rare.
Yeah.
And not put it in things that are run all the time, like ISAs and, CCAs and stuff. Just some of these more obscure STFs. It would be wonderful to see something like that brought back in.
Yeah, another reason to do those maps and also to play together because
Hmm.
as much as you would think this game is team oriented, and at times it is, there's not a whole lot that makes you have to play with your fleet. I mean, there's so many people who join fleets and armadas who don't necessarily interact with them or play with them, and there's a lot of different things you could do just to make that easier. I mean,
Hmm.
things like if you were on an all team of the same fleet and you were doing a mission for fleet marks, there was a bonus for you guys.
Hmm.
Just little things like that that make it a little more worthwhile.
Oh, yeah. So anyways, recently we've been hearing through Zone Chat and a few other places about Corfez. I hadn't played Corfez in probably close to a year, because I mean we did it back in the day. It was fun, and then it was done and over with. And then since season 13, I guess they beefed it up. Like absolutely, people were saying it was an impossible map. Nobody could do it. Um, so basically, we did some theory crafting and built a team. We got a 5-man team together. And what did you bring in there again, Aponte?
For our final team that we put together that worked really well, I went with a pilot ship, the new Miradorn, with a
Mm-hmm.
rapid fire single target build.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Tanky, he brought Drain Force 1, which was just absolutely insane. The Drain Excellent, I think. Wasn't it like 800 or more?
Yeah, I mean, I've messed around with Drain before and had some success in different maps, but nobody does Drain like
Yeah.
Tankia.
Yeah, and then Proteus would go in there with his side build and he would sub nuke it. So, I mean, it took a little bit to grind down and stuff, but I mean, we had a couple of DPSers. I was just in a basic beam boat. Um, so I was just basically ganking everything. So, yeah, the Bentons were really stupid easy to kill. They had like no health points or whatever. And there was a part where they would glitch out, like even though they would see like they were leaving, it didn't count towards you know, the end part, so
So yeah, I mean, I remember when Fez first came out. I remember hearing those same things, and that it was the Benthans at that point that made Fez an impossible mission at the time. And then they kind of fixed Fez, if you will, and Corfez became to a point where you could get a pug team, and most 90% of the time you were going to complete the mission and it was going to be fine.
hmm yeah,
So yeah, go ahead.
but I mean, I could see like you that's something that you cannot pug. That is absolutely something you cannot pug, or just go in there with 2, 3 people just hoping to nuke the hell out of it because the thing's got like absolutely insane hit points and it regenerates. at like an extreme rate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I was actually excited when I heard that Fez is hard again, and we went in there, I think, twice before we had finally beat it. And the first time was literally just to go in and see what had changed. We didn't know if it was the Bentons again or what. So that first one was pretty much just a dry run.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it wasn't until I think the third attempt that we finally were able to beat it, but that's because after doing it twice, we had started theorizing and messing around with what we needed to do.
Oh yeah, we were using aceton assimilators.
Yeah, which really helped because obviously with the boss, after you hit him for a while, he's going to jump away and fire out those torpedoes. Now, if the aceton assimilator is where he jumped to, he starts firing at that and doesn't fire the torps.
Mm-hmm. And you came up with a pretty neat way of, ganking the torpedoes that were being shot out as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, we figured that. I mean, the biggest thing is no matter how we needed some time to kill the ship, obviously, but if all the torps kept hitting the sun, it was over.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, I figured just something a little more PvP style, a little single target and hard hitting. So that's why I decided to go with a rapid cannon build on a pilot ship, something that could get there real fast and keep up with them, and just put a good amount of hard hit on them. And it seemed to work out. It seemed like we put the perfect balance together there at the end.
Yeah, we noticed that torpedoes had no effect on those torpedoes.
Yeah, which was kind of interesting.
Oden was not happy.
No.
It doesn't make sense to me why and stuff, but yeah, I mean, and then I didn't have much, luck getting them just with my basic beam, so yeah, your vape build was a great idea.
Yeah.
And it worked out really well.
Which is interesting about the torps too, though, because if you think about something that's just good for hard hit one hits, you would think torp would be there too. But when we saw that, I figured cannons was the next idea.
Yeah. It, like I said, that saved our butts quite a bit. I mean,
Yeah.
we always got like one or two torpedoes that got past us and hit the sun and whatever, but it wasn't as bad as like the first time we did it. It felt impossible. Like there's no way to do this. But see, that's why, like, sitting with a group of friends and stuff like that, and you start theory crafting. One person, Tankia, was the one that came up with the aceton assimilators, and also his Dreamforce 1. You were the one that thought about more of the PvP vape build. I was just spinning in circles and spamming spacebar, so, I mean, I had the hard job.
Yeah. But, I mean, see, so, again, we keep talking about the boss now. The rest of the map still has changed. So even that opening fight, when we went into it the first time, we just ran into the middle, like we're so accustomed to, and just started firing at them, thinking we're going to vape them. And it ended up that in the runs where we completed it, we actually went to the left all together as a team and started taking them down left to right, almost HSE style. So they are a lot tougher all the way throughout, whether it's the asteroid field, the Bentons, things like that. One good thing about the Bentons is it looks like the Bentons have actually, like, those ships can take a little bit of a punch down.
Yeah, as long as you gank the artillery guys. The other ships you can ignore, you have to take out the artillery.
Yeah. Which, is a little bit of, I know you guys have been doing it that way for a while, but I remember when Bentons, when this was first a thing and people were coming up with the strategies, it was always because there's 5 lanes of Bentons, so everybody take a lane and go. And now we see that it's actually better to put somebody in the middle, somebody on the right and left, and now together the 3 of them will cover those 5 lanes. And 2 guys, either if they're in a torp boat, something like that, or a cannon rapid, something single target, literally just go from right to left to right, taking out the heavy artillery, because those are the ships that will take out the Bentons. So.
Oh yeah, and it worked out wonderfully. Now, the asteroid part, where basically the ships are flying to get through the blockade, that one's pretty tricky. You need a lot of crowd control. Yeah, because Proteus did well with that with his grab wells and stuff like that. Yeah. But yeah, that one was tricky.
I would actually say that's the new Bentons. I'd say that's the one that is going to give you the most problem, other than obviously the boss.
Yeah. Well, anyways, let's move on to like what we've been doing recently. Believe it or not, we've been doing some role play. Proteus, a friend of ours, he came up with the idea. It's like, why don't we do like themed runs for ISA? Like tonight we did all toss ships, and we would go into ISA and then HSE, and then we also did next generation. Like I went in there with the Sovereign. Okay. Yeah, and then Aponte went in there with the Galaxy. Yeah, we had a wonderful time. We even we even like went to the transporter pad, beamed up together, warped out together. So yeah, Darth Protius, he's gonna be taking all those and then making some pretty cool, fun videos with that. So yeah, definitely look towards his channel in the future.
Yeah, and I mean, we plan on taking it to a pretty extreme level. You know, we did TNG and TOS tonight, but we kind of were going over some of the extent of the different races and stuff we could do, and I think they came up with 20 plus between, you know, an all Jem'Hadar team, an all Breen team,
Hmm.
Krenum. I mean, you know, there's just so many uh, to choose from, and even what Chuck was saying, you know, original series ground weapons, maybe
Oh
do
yeah, minor.
miners.
Hmm.
Yeah, so there's a lot of fun we could have with that. So I'm really excited.
And also, good news, the show is back with Oden Knight and Alan, and Darth Proteus was on there as well. That's been great. They're good friends of ours, buddies, and stuff like that. We hang out with them on a daily basis. But I don't know if they're going to be doing it every week or if it's going to be like every other week. But they're more or less going to be more of the positive fun side. They're not going to be going into like meat and potatoes too much like what we've been doing here on STO Tech Trek, but it is wonderful to see that they're back again doing stuff.
Yeah, I mean that, you know, before I even started playing with you guys necessarily and hanging out, I mean I always listened to the show, and you know that was a big part of my STO experience. So it's awesome to see that that's back and in great hands, and I just keep looking forward to more episodes.
Yeah, and also I want to do a mention of another buddy of ours, Snipey47A. A lot of you may know him in the PvP circles, but he does a lot of space barbing. He recently came out with a video, Star Trek: The Next Generation 30 Years Tribute, Star Trek Offline. It is a phenomenal video. If you're into like what Alan does, where he does like a lot of quote unquote ship porn, where he takes cinematic videos and he just basically it's better than anything I've seen like come out of like Cryptic. No offense to Cryptic, but Alan just goes above and beyond. And Snipey just did something that was like so crazily out of this world. He was using a lot of crazy After Effects and stuff like that. So we're gonna put a link in the description below. You should definitely check that out. Um, and
Yeah, I agree. I mean, check that. I watched that video, and I was pretty amazed. And from talking to him to find out that it's just something he recently started playing with, just to actually get that video out there, it was really crazy. Some of the scenes are so awesome, really well done. You know, congrats to him, and go check it out because
mm,
it's awesome.
oh yeah, because I mean, I saw some of the still shots beforehand. Because I'm part of another Discord with a group of people. Rami and Dano from STO. If you guys ever heard of them, they do what they call shinies. They take just photos of in game and they doctor them up to make them look so good. It's absolutely amazing how well of a job they do there. Hopefully, I would like to see them start putting something out, a lot more to where other people can see it as opposed to just sharing it amongst their friends. But yeah, Snipey worked with them and they all basically, came up with this masterpiece. So wonderful.
Absolutely.
And on a sad note, if you guys ever watched Next Gen, of course you did. The original actor that played Alexander, Worf's son, recently passed away. His name was John Paul Stewart. He was 33 years old, and it sucks. Anybody who watched it and stuff like that really identified with that kid at that time. Because his mother died, et cetera, et cetera. Worf was coming to bear with being a parent, and yeah, you get to see a lot of that. He was a phenomenal child actor, but I believe that he was also like after that, many years later, he got into a band, and I don't know anything about the music quite yet, so I'm probably going to check that out here in the future and see what kind of music he played. And it's sad when somebody that you watched as a child or just for years that they pass, and it's a tragedy.
Yeah, I agree. Always something, you know, that you never want to hear about, but you know, thanks to him for all the great work that he's done. So that's it for episode 3. Thank you guys as always, and stay tuned. We have a lot more great content coming up.